All right. A little early today. That's all right. A little early today, but that's all right. Great day to you, beautiful people. Great day to you. Hope you're doing well. Hopefully, you are protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continuing to strive to become beneficial. Thank you for joining me for another episode of. Is these episodes, or should I just call them parts? Not sure. But welcome to another reading with Jam. My name is Jam, but my real name is Jamal Calpin. So Jam is whatever. Thank you for coming from to reading with Jam. I'm an actor, voice actor, and content creator, focused on trying to help Black men overcome gray mediocrity so that they can become their best selves and live in vibrant excellence for glory and for good and for the benefit of those around them. So yes, and what we're doing here in Reading with Jam is I'm taking the opportunity to practice my voice narration in my acting, but also reading personal development books and content that would be personally I would feel would be beneficial to my personal growth, but also I wanted to share it with you because maybe it'll help you too. Because I realize, especially I realize that everyone don't spend a lot of time just reading books, and sometimes we don't read books that may not initially take our interest. So like if somebody's really into science, they may not read a book about sports. You know what I'm saying? But we need to, I don't know, the thought that came to mind is like we have to have like cross pollination. Like you have to get some stuff from everywhere. It's like multidisciplinary kind of things to help us grow. We need a mixture of things. You can't just, I don't know, I'm sorry, these analogies, I don't know if they're linking, but like you can't just have, um, you can't just live off of protein. Like you have to get other vitamins and micro and macronutrients. You need all the different stuff. So you have to have a variety of things. You can't just eat hamburgers. You know what I'm saying? Like you gotta have some vegetables. You gotta have some fruit. Like yesterday I had a persimmon for the first time. It was really good. So like I'm excited about eating other fruits that could be, you know, tasty and delicious and add more to my palate and add more to my experience. So it's the same with, the content that we consume. So the books. But all right, let's jump right into it. Enough of this rambling. I'm going to put 30 minutes on the clock, and we're going to get into reading Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. Start. Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. Chapter 11. Places we go when life is good. Joy, happiness, calm, contentment, gratitude, foreboding joy, relief, tranquility. And I wish you joy and happiness, but above all of this, I wish you love. Dolly Parton, I will always love you. When I hear that line, I immediately think of Dolly Parton and I immediately feel Whitney Houston. I had the great pleasure of talking to Dolly on the Unlocking Us podcast. She was incredible. Can you believe she wrote, I will always love you and Jolene in the same day? In Dolly's gorgeous book, Songteller, she tells the story of Kevin Costner's office calling about using I Will Always Love You in a movie. Dolly had worked with the person who was doing the music for the film, liked them, and said yes. She writes, but that was the last I'd heard of it. Then one day I was driving my Cadillac back home to Brentwood from my office. I had the radio on, and all of a sudden I heard this spoken voice say, if I should stay. It caught my ear, but I didn't recognize it. Then, when it went into the music, I thought I was going to wreck the car. I have never had such an overwhelming feeling. I had to pull off to the side of the road because it just got bigger and bigger and better and better. I have never experienced a greater feeling in my life than hearing Whitney Houston sing that song for the first time. I don't think there's a better wish for someone you care about than joy, happiness, and love. Even in 1973, Dolly clearly knew that joy and happiness are two separate emotions. We need both, but how we experience them and how they affect us are different. Joy is sudden, unexpected, short lasting, and high intensity. It's characterized by a connection with others, or with God, nature, or the universe. Joy expands our thinking and attention, and it fills us with a sense of freedom and abandon. Happiness is stable, longer lasting, and normally the result of effort. It's lower in intensity than joy and more self focused. With happiness, we feel a sense of being in control. Unlike joy, which is more internal, happiness seems more external and circumstantial. In The Gifts of Imperfection, I quote Anne Robertson, a theologian and writer, on the difference between joy and happiness. She explains that the Greek word for happiness is makarios, which was used to describe the freedom of the rich from normal cares and worries, or to describe a person who receives some form of good fortune, such as money or health. Robertson compares this to the Greek word for joy, which is kairo. Kairo was described by the ancient Greeks as the culmination of being and the good mood of the soul. Robertson writes, Kairo is something the ancient Greeks tell us that is found only in God and comes with virtue and wisdom. It isn't a beginner's virtue. It comes as the culmination. They say its opposite is not sadness, but fear. Interesting. Joy. I love thinking of joy as the good mood of the soul. There is definitely something soulful about joy. Based on our research, I define joy as an intense feeling of deep spiritual connection, pleasure, and appreciation. Excuse me. Researcher Matthew Kwan, pick up. Researcher Matthew Kwan Johnson explains that people find experiences of joy difficult to articulate. He hypothesizes that the very nature of joy pushes the boundaries of our ability to communicate about lived experience via spoken language. He also suggests that because language can shape lived experience, cultures that have more words to describe the emotion of joy may also experience joy more richly. Johnson shares that while experiencing joy, we don't lose ourselves, we become more truly ourselves. He suggests that with joy, colors seem brighter, physical movements feel freer and easier, and smiling happens involuntarily. Some researchers even describe spontaneous weeping as part of the overwhelming experience of joy. For me personally, one of the greatest lessons I've learned from 2 decades of research has been understanding the relationship between joy and gratitude. Researchers describe the relationship between joy and gratitude as an intriguing upward spiral. I also love this term, such a great antidote to the downward spirals that we always hear about and, unfortunately, sometimes experience. The intriguing upward spiral goes like this. Trait gratitude predicts greater future experiences of in the moment joy. Trait joy predicts greater future experiences of in the moment gratitude. And dispositional or situational joy predicts greater future subjective well being. It all just spirals up. In Daring Greatly, I tell a story about an outing with Ellen during which I had the privilege of witnessing the expansive and incredible nature of joy and gratitude at play. This seems like yesterday, but it happened 16 years ago, when Ellen was in the first grade. We played hooky one afternoon and spent the day at Herman Park. At one point, we were on a paddle boat in the middle of a pond when I realized she had stopped pedaling and was sitting perfectly still in her seat. Her head was tilted back and her eyes were closed. The sun was shining on her uplifted face, and she had a quiet smile on her face. I was so struck by her beauty and her vulnerability and the joy on her face that I could barely catch my breath. I watched her for a full minute, but when she didn't move, I got a little nervous. Ellie, is everything okay, sweetie? Her smile widened, and she opened her eyes. She looked at me and said, I'm fine, Mama. I was just making a picture memory. I had never heard of a picture memory, but I like the sound of it. What's that mean? Oh, a picture memory is a picture I take in my mind when I'm really, really happy. I close my eyes and take a picture. So when I'm feeling sad or scared or lonely, I can look at my picture memories. She used the word happy, as we often do, but there's no question that I was witnessing joy, that swirl of deep spiritual connection, pleasure, and appreciation. Happiness. Let me tell you what does not make me happy. The fact that there is really no consensus in the research when it comes to defining happiness. I think this is the case for a couple of reasons. First, even the most prominent happiness researchers describe happiness as an ambiguous word that has been used historically as an overarching term to describe an entire realm of positive emotions. Second, the vast majority of research we have examines happiness as a trait, part of who we are, not a state, something we experience. In fact, in our keyword literature searches, out of approximately 15,000 articles on happiness, we found only 12 articles that described their focus as state happiness. That comes to 0.08% of studies. Looking at happiness as a trait, researchers found that people's usual level of happiness is fairly stable and highly based on hereditary factors, and that for most people, the level could be described as being on the happy side of neutral. Happy side of neutral is yet another great brand. This happy side of neutral is yet another great band name. Looking at the data we've collected, I would define the state of happiness as feeling pleasure often related to the immediate environment or current circumstances. We need happy moments and happiness in our lives. However, I'm growing more convinced that the pursuit of happiness may get in the way of deeper, more meaningful experiences like joy and gratitude. I know from the research and my experiences that when it comes to parenting, what makes children happy in the moment is not always what leads them to developing deeper joy, grounded confidence, and meaningful connection. Calm. I define calm as creating perspective and mindfulness while managing emotional reactivity. When I think about calm people, I think about people who can bring perspective to complicated situations and experience their feelings without reacting to heightened emotions. For the gifts of imperfection research, when people describe themselves as calm or talked about other people describing them as calm, I asked a lot of questions. Did they think their calmness was a trait or a practice or both? Did maintaining calm feel like work or like a default setting? Did they see calm modeled growing up? Did they remember learning it? For personal reasons, I've stayed curious about calm over the years, and the themes and patterns I found in the original research continue to emerge. First, whether calm is a practice or something more inherent, there are behaviors specific to cultivating and maintaining calm that include a lot of self questioning. The process seems to be centered on breath, perspective taking, and curiosity. 1. Calm is an intention. Do we want to infect people with more anxiety or heal ourselves and the people around us with calm? As the psychologist and writer Harriet Lerner says, anxiety is contagious. Intensity and reactivity only breed more of the same. Calm is also contagious. Nothing is more important than getting a grip on your own reactivity. Number 2, do we match the pace of anxiety or do we slow things down with breath and tone? And number 3, do we have all the information we need to make a decision or form a response? What do we need to ask or learn? As someone who has to work on calm as a practice rather than a trait, I've shortened this to two quick questions I ask myself when I feel fear, panic, or anxiety rising. Do I have enough information to freak out? The answer is normally no. Will freaking out help? The answer is always no. Contentment. When you are discontent, you always want more, more, more. Your desire can never be satisfied. But when you practice contentment, you can say to yourself, "Oh yes, I already have everything that I really need." The 14th Dalai Lama. Contentment is about satisfaction, and that ironically is an unsatisfying idea for a lot of people. It just doesn't seem like enough in a world that tells us every minute should be big and life should be OMG level exciting at all times. We're somehow slipped into a way of being where a text that reads, "I'll stop and get milk on the way home," earns a four emoji reply along with "Awesome, you're number one." By these standards, contentment feels a little meh. However, if you think about it, we are surrounded by scarcity, and most of us are also, sorry. However, if you think about it, we are surrounded by scarcity, and most of us are almost desperate to feel satisfied and to experience the enoughness that contentment brings. Based on a summary of data we collected in the existing research, I define contentment as the feeling of completeness, appreciation, and enoughness that we experience when our needs are satisfied. Several researchers categorize all emotions into one of two categories: low arousal and high arousal. Contentment is Contentment is characterized as a low arousal positive emotion, along with peace, tranquility, and satisfaction. These are comfy, old pair of jeans emotions. I don't have any data to back this up, but I bet if you ask people after 2020 how they feel about a life that feels content and satisfying, you get a lot of takers, including me. Contentment is positively correlated with greater life satisfaction and well being, and preliminary evidence shows that experiences of contentment might reverse the cardiovascular effects of negative emotion. One piece of research that grabbed me by the shoulders is that on one of the instruments that measures contentment, 71% of the variance in life satisfaction is measured by a single item. All things considered, how satisfied are you with your life as a whole these days? This always leads to the age old question: if we're not satisfied with our life as a whole, does this mean we need to go get and do the stuff that will make us satisfied so we can be content? Or does this mean we stop taking for granted what we have so we can experience real contentment and enoughness? Gratitude. Call me a qualitative researcher, but I'm starting to see a trend here. It appears that many of the emotions that are good for us, joy, contentment, and gratitude, to name a few, have appreciation in common. There is overwhelming evidence that gratitude is good for us physically, emotionally, and mentally. There's research that shows that gratitude is correlated with better sleep, increased creativity, decreased entitlement, decreased hostility and aggression, increased decision making skills, decreased blood pressure, the list goes on. The research is persuasive, and I've read countless research articles and books on gratitude, but I still struggle to understand exactly why it helps so much until I read this by Robert Emmons. Emmons is the world's leading scientific expert on gratitude. He is a professor of psychology at the University of California, Davis, and the founding editor in chief of the Journal of Positive Psychology. He writes: research on emotion shows that positive emotions wear off quickly. Our emotional systems like newness, they like novelty, they like change. We adapt to positive life circumstances so that before too long, the new car, the new spouse, the new house, they don't feel so new and exciting anymore. But gratitude makes us appreciate the value of something. And when we appreciate the value of something, we extract more benefits from it. We're less likely to take it for granted. In effect, I think gratitude allows us to participate more in life. We notice the positives more, and that magnifies the pleasures you get from life. Instead of adapting to goodness, we celebrate goodness. Sorry. We spend so much time watching things, movies, computer screens, sports, but with gratitude, we become greater participants in our lives as opposed to spectators. The two lines that resonate with my research are: instead of adapting to goodness, we celebrate goodness. We become greater participants in our lives as opposed to spectators. The phrase adapting to goodness reminds me of a quote I've seen all over social media. Remember the day you prayed for the things you have now. I normally scroll right past the heavy inspirational quotes, but this one got my attention. I think adapting to goodness without feeling gratitude is a function of scarcity. We either want things for the wrong reasons, then feel disappointed when we acquire them, or we just can't accumulate enough to feel whole. So we accumulate and adapt, never valuing or appreciating. And the line about living our lives versus being spectators simply reminds me of how many people I've interviewed over the past 2 decades who talked about simply wanting to feel more alive. It's part of the value of practicing gratitude, extending the life of the emotions that make us feel most alive. There are about as many definitions of gratitude as there are researchers, poets, and writers who examine the emotion in their work. Many of the existing research definitions don't resonate with the way people describe their experiences of gratitude to me in interviews or in writing. Here's what emerged from our work: gratitude is an emotion that reflects our deep appreciation for what we value, what brings meaning to our lives, and what makes us feel connected to ourselves and others. While gratitude is an emotion, if we want to experience its full power, we must also make it a practice. Over the past 2 decades, The research has taught me that, despite the catchy phrase, an attitude of gratitude, gratitude is a practice. It's tangible. An attitude is a way of thinking. A practice is a way of doing, trying, failing, and trying again. The research participants that I interviewed over the years described keeping gratitude journals, doing daily gratitude meditations or prayers, creating gratitude art, using gratitude check ins with their teams at work, even stopping during their stressful, busy days to actually say these words out loud. I am grateful for. In our house, we go around the table at dinner and take turns sharing one gratitude. It's small, but it's also big. It gives me a window into the lives of the people I love the most. It's celebrating goodness. Last, I want to share something that recently popped up on social media. I posted something about the importance of gratitude, and someone left a comment that said they thought gratitude might be overrated as a cure for depression, trauma, and anxiety. What I would say is that gratitude is not a cure for anything, and we need to be wary of any single practice or approach that's sold as fixing or curing complex mental health issues. Gratitude is a practice that can enrich our lives in meaningful ways. Excuse me. In the world of mental health and social emotional learning, the term cure feels like snake oil. Excuse me. The term cure feels like snake oil to me. Foreboding joy. When I give talks, people always seem surprised by the finding that joy is the most vulnerable human emotion. Given that I study fear and shame, people are hesitant to believe that something as positive as joy can make us squirm. Then I share what is almost certainly the most surprising finding for most people. If you're afraid to lean into good news, wonderful moments, and joy, if you find yourself waiting for the other shoe to drop, you are not alone. It's called foreboding joy, and most of us experience it. This is when things get really quiet. Foreboding joy is one of those practically universal experiences that everyone thinks of as something only they do. A few people don't experience it, but most of us do. And when it comes to parents, 95% of the parents we interviewed experience foreboding joy with their children. When we lose our tolerance for vulnerability, joy becomes foreboding. No emotion is more frightening than joy, because we believe if we allow ourselves to feel joy, we are inviting disaster. We start dress rehearsing tragedy in the best moments of our lives in order to stop vulnerability from beating us to the punch. We are terrified of being blindsided by pain, so we practice tragedy and trauma, but there's a huge cost. When we push away joy, we squander the goodness that we need to build resilience, strength, and courage. The good news? In our research, we found that everyone who showed a deep capacity for joy had one thing in common: they practiced gratitude. In the midst of joy, there's often a quiver, a shudder of vulnerability. Rather than using that as a warning sign to practice imagining the worst case scenario, the people who lean into joy use the quiver as a reminder to practice gratitude. Relief. The definition that best aligns with our findings is from researchers Ira Roseman and Andreas Evdokas. Evdokas? They describe relief as feelings of tension leaving the body and being able to breathe more easily. Thoughts of the worst being thoughts of the worst being over and being safe for the moment, resting and wanting to get on to something else. When most of us think of how relief feels, we go immediately to a deep exhale and a long, breathy whew. Well, it turns out that there's something to that sigh of relief. Sighing serves as a type of reset button for our body. It not only signals relief to our body, but it enhances relief and it reduces muscle tension. Okay. That was a short section. Next, tranquility. Tranquility may be my new favorite emotion. Why? Check out the research definition. Tranquility is associated with the absence of demand and no pressure to do anything. No demands, no pressures. Sign me up. Or should I say, take me away. Tranquil environments provide many restorative elements that are needed to counter mental fatigue and attention depletion. Researchers Rachel and Stephen Kaplan found that there are four essential elements of a restorative environment: a sense of getting away, a feeling of immersion, holding attention without effort, and compatibility with one's preferences. Additional research shows that there are auditory and visual components to tranquil environments, including elements of nature and low levels of noise. Settings that induce high tranquility include fields and forests and large bodies of water. Urban settings tend not to induce tranquility. Like I said, take me away. One thing to note: there's a difference between feeling content and feeling tranquil. With contentment, we often have the sense of having completed something. With tranquility, we relish the feeling of doing nothing. And she ended the chapter with, I'm assuming this would be blue in the book, like blue skies or white clouds, but maybe not. I don't know. But that ends chapter 11. And that was Places We Go when life is good. I thought this was a nice chapter. I guess it's a good break from what the past 4 or 5 chapters that we've done about like sad and heavy feelings. I think the thing that's interesting that was mentioned in this chapter is that positive feelings are so temporary and I guess I want to say like flighty compared to heavier feelings, so like sadness and heartbreak and stuff like that. I don't know why that is. I I feel like the wish is that it would be reversed, that happiness, joy, calm, contentment, all of those things would last longer and we could abide in them and relish in them longer compared to the more negative or traumatic feelings. But and I mean I think it sucks because it can be very difficult to get out of those places. But based off of what she shared here, it definitely seems like it requires intentionality to stay in those positive places, like at first I was when I was reading the definitions of joy and happiness that she has here, I thought it would be flipped, but I can understand how like the way that she described joy sounds different, I guess, from how I've learned it and I've been taught, I guess, in like Christian circles. Like joy is the more, which is kind of similar to what she's saying, but like joy is the constant that you have all the time, while happiness can be the spiking thing. But the way that she described it here is joy is sudden, unexpected, short lasting, and high intensity. It's characterized by connection with others or with God, nature, or the universe. Joy expands our thinking and attention, and it fills us with a sense of freedom and abandon. And I kind of like that. And I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm processing processing thoughts out loud. But I guess I wonder, like, how do you cultivate more joy? And I guess you said you have to practice more gratitude and stuff like that. But if it's just short things, like I don't know. I'm just trying to think, how can we have longer lasting joy in our lives? Because we need joy, just like we need love, we need peace, we need contentment, we need all of these things. But often we struggle or have to face like the heavier stuff, I don't know. I think this one's interesting. Even though this was a shorter chapter, it definitely has even though this is a shorter chapter, I think this is a chapter that is something that people probably want the most thus far in what we've been reading. Like love is important. Absolutely. I think love and joy, peace, all that works together. But I think more people would probably desire contentment, tranquility, joy, and happiness in their regular everyday life. And it sounds like this is something that you have to be very intentional about seeing and something intentional about experiencing. And if you don't, then it's very easy to then get caught up in all the other stuff. So I don't know. I mean, try to find some joy today, I guess, is what I would encourage. And one of the ways to do that is to express gratitude. You know, take some time to be like, all right, what am I thankful for? What can I be grateful for? And highlight those things throughout the day. That I think that sense of appreciation can definitely put us in a place to, you know, I, I like the saying there's some, I heard the saying that, we should always look for like blues and greens in the day. And so that, reflects in nature. Like there's a lot of, at least where I am right now, there are a lot of trees, even though it's fall time and a lot of the leaves are down, you still know that that's green, that's still nature. And then of course there's a blue sky. So there's a lot of blues and greens. There's a lot of things around us to be thankful for and grateful for. But again, if we're rushing everywhere, if we're stressed about stuff all the time, it can be very difficult and very challenging to bring that focus to those things that are always present. So take some time today, find some joy, even if it's in little things, find some joy and take some time to be grateful and express some gratitude for what you already have in life. I guess the other thing that I liked before I wrap this up is her definition of foreboding joy. I never heard that term before, but I can see, like in that section, she mentioned how joy is actually the emotion that requires the most vulnerability, and that immediately makes sense to me because I think it can be difficult to express it because you're afraid of either something bad happening to take it away, like she's saying, like the foreboding joy, or people criticizing and tearing down your joy. So that can be like the crabs in a bucket mentality. And that sucks. That sucks. Like we can be so scared to express our happiness and express our joy because somebody could come around and just like deflate it. And it sucks when you live in like a very critical and cynical world because it's real easy to do that. Even posting stuff on social media, you can be like, "Oh, I'm so happy this happened," and someone like, "That's lame." Like it always seems to be a Debbie Downer or like a Downer Daryl there to deflate your joy. But I guess you have to continue to practice that gratitude and protect your joy, and protect those good things that you want. But all right, I think that's enough. Thank you all for joining me for another reading with Jam. We're reading Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown, and we finished chapter 11 today. Hope you all enjoy your day. Protect your mental, find time for an emotional release valve, and keep striving to become beneficial. There's greatness within you. Quoting Les Brown. Y'all have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow, I believe. So, peace.